Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Success Navigator, the SHRPA Research 2024 Leadership Interview Series. A series where we dive further into the findings of Asia Pacific and Middle East's largest HR industry study, the People Matters Global SHRPA Report 24, and talk to top talent and tech leaders across APAC to provide you actionable insights and strategies on how to make 2025 uh, impactful. For a conversation today, we have with us Divya Mohan, CHRO at InsuranceDekho. And our conversation, while touching upon a lot of different aspects, will be centered around how HR can today accelerate its ability to deliver business results through HR technology and strengthen its change management journey. It's great to have you with us today, Divya.
Thank you, Dhruv.
Great. So let me dive straight into our first question, and it's a question. It's an insight that we've seen emerge maybe across a lot of different conversations, but it really got highlighted in a report where we saw there is still some skepticism within the HR fraternity today on driving productivity through AI and analytics and executing digital transformation, where these still remain a major area of dissatisfaction. Why do you see this trend still playing out in 2024? And how do you think change management as a key aspect can be strengthened to help HR leaders address these challenges moving ahead?
I think a tech solution or a AI enabled solution is as good as its implementation. So it starts right at the top as to why you want a particular solution to be implemented. Hence, that alignment at a leadership level and then communication becomes an essential part of the success. So, dissat or sat, I feel the result will change the moment you review the uh, overall communication plan, the way we drive it, the way we land it with the business as well as the employees, and then see whether it's serving the purpose or not. Coming to change management, Dhruv, I feel in my experience, the biggest thing is to first understand how your HR tech or the AI solution that you're implementing aligns with the overall business strategy. We can't automate or we can't implement a tech or AI solution just because we want to as the senior management. It has to align with uh, the place where the organization is at as far as the maturity continuum is concerned, and also what the business needs at that point in time. So at ID, whenever we are looking at solutions, and there are multiple solutions that we implemented on the HR side, we'll come to it as the interview unfolds. But the first thing that we did was to know whether that's actually benefiting us and whether that's the need of the hour. Once we
Right.
knew that that's what we want to do, we started off by aligning the business leaders first and then communicating the VIFM to our employees, to the various stakeholders that are there in the process. And we firmed it up with analytics to tell as to whether those solutions are actually being used or not. And we killed every quasi channel to obtain that data or to do that process. Because the moment you create a parallel universe, people will not leave their
Right.
comfort zone. People will not adopt the tech that you decided to implement. So removing those crutches is very very important, and the timing of it is also very important because obviously it takes time to lap up certain things. So when we did all of this in quick succession, and some we did in parallel, that ensured that the solution landed well with employees at large.
Right, right, right. Thank you for encapsulating that journey for us, Divya. And as I hear this journey, I'm sure there's a lot of internal changes within the HR operating model, within how skilled your own team is. I'm sure these factors were also on your mind. So, if you had to look at some of the skills that you think HR leaders and HR teams of tomorrow really need to maybe execute this kind of dynamic change management that you say, What would you say are were your top priorities, and what would you recommend HR teams moving ahead?
That's a great question, Dhruv. In my journey as an HR leader, I have seen HR COEs and structures evolve with the change. So, if you look at traditional COEs, you had your TM, you had your compensation, you had your TA, and you had your business partnering. But today, I see HR tech and transformation coming up as a very, very important vertical, and that's something which I
Right.
did when I joined ID, and that's the vertical that I built. So I have communication as well as transformation as a key COE, and this COE looks at multiple processes, talks to employees, talks to business leaders, and understands where is it that we need to implement tech, or we need to take help from AI. And then the entire process of looking at the universe, the market, as to what exists in the market, and therefore what will fit into our reality starts. Then the communication team looks at how to land it with the employees, how to soften
Correct.
the blow in some cases, because let's accept it. It's, the typical mindset is that. Don't stop what's working, right? You don't really need to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes I feel we need to reinvent the wheel, because unless and until we break something that's been working, we really don't know whether we could do it better and do it faster. So that's something which the communication team takes care of, talking to multiple stakeholders, understanding how to educate. So just implementing a solution is not enough. How do you build the
Right.
entire learning infrastructure around it? How do you educate your business, educate your people as to how this process is going to benefit them, and how to ensure that there is enough absorption and enough sponsorship for what you're doing, and then closing the loop as to where there are problems, whether those are problems which are education issues, or whether there are problems that need to be fixed in the process per se. All that is taken care by the communication end. So that's how, from a structural perspective, we ensure that we have a team that's looking at trends, that understands tech, that understands AI, that understands the solutions. And then while it takes care of the nuts and bolts of the overall implementation and overhaul, as the case may be, we buttress it with the communication team, and then the entire business partnering team also comes into play, and all three get together to land the solution well. So that's how we have structured it, and that's how, in fact, it's not just ID. In fact, that's a big change which I'm seeing in multiple HR structures, even in new age organizations and not the traditional large organizations. Even for
Yeah.
startups, this is
Yeah.
becoming a huge area of investment as far as talent is concerned, because this is a niche skill, Dhruv. This is not something which traditional
Agreed. Yeah.
HR is equipped with. These are people who have evolved, these people, they understand how to do it. So therefore there's a need to get in experts. If you don't have experts from within the organization, then look at getting talent from outside, talent which has seen this entire journey and understands how to sew it together. Because, like I said, the solution is as good as you make it to be. And a great tech solution or a great AI solution is not enough. What is needed is a great HR infrastructure, which includes transformation, which
Correct.
includes the ability to understand and implement tech, and also the communication side of it, so that everything, comes together, and you get maximum juice from the investments that you make on the HR tech side or on the AI side.
Great, great. I think there's a lot for our listeners to unpack in that one answer, and what I really like is the sentiment that sometimes you really need to uh, reinvent the wheel, as you sort of said, because a lot of the challenges that we've also seen through the report emerges because there is perhaps a reluctance in doing that. That actually brings me greatly to my next question, where we've been talking about HR transformation, and as you said, like it's often not just about the technology, but also how there is that right HR infrastructure in place. What we've seen is that, I mean, in the report, we see that around 64% of and HR across APAC and Middle East uh, are, are liable to miss out on HR transformation success if they're not tech enabled and people centric. You've spoken about the tech enablement aspect of it, but how do you think HR should really look at making HR transformation people centric? You've spoken a little bit about it, but how are you looking at it in 2025, and what do you think are some strategies that our listeners can really go back to their workplace and implement?
I think two big considerations that any HR team should make while thinking of tech enabled solutions is one, how can they prioritize employee experience? Where the rubber hits the road
Yeah,
is whether the job that you set out to do is getting done in a better way or in a faster way. And at the same time, is it contributing to employee experience or stakeholder experience in some way or the other? Where HR folks may tend to miss the buses, that they may take a look at the solution and the solution may look fantastic, but if it is not addressing a particular pain area, or it is not simplifying things, or it's not bettering experience in some way or the other, then the uptake for that solution becomes a problem. So
yeah,
it has to start with how to better the employee experience and not just focus on efficiency or effectiveness. That's one thing which I would strongly recommend before we think about what solutions to implement. And second is, of course, we as HR, we need to foster a culture of continuous learning and agility. It brings
agree.
back it brings me back to the same point that the philosophy that don't fix what's not broken may not be true any longer, because we are in a rapidly evolving space, Dhruv. And
Yeah,
our organizations are multi-generational. We no longer have an organization which is very homogeneous. We don't. We have millennials, we have Gen Zs, and soon we will have the alpha generation also as a part of it, and we have baby boomers and all, all kinds of people coming from different walks of life, and everybody's expectation from what experience should be, or what agility should be, or how I should, or how they should do a particular thing is very, very different. So catering to multiple needs is also an issue, and that requires a lot of agility to understand where people are moving, what they are doing. To give you a simple example, when we started
yeah,
off, while we have an HRMS that caters to just about everything HR, we did not start off with automating the entire hiring process, because the numbers that we were looking at and the kind of process that we had made it essential that we run it, in on Excels, on the usual tools that we have. But 4 5 months in the system, we realized that the number and the volume and the maturity of people to absorb this kind of solution absolutely changed, and that's when we moved the entire hiring to our HRMS today, right from sending the resumes. And I'm talking about not just um, the enabling functions or the corporate
yeah,
functions. I'm also speaking about frontline roles where we hire a lot. So everything right from sending the resumes to scheduling of interviews to shortlisting to giving the feedback, everything. I mean, right from raising the requisitions to the appointment letter, everything is automated, and there is no noise, because people have understood, because we gave them the time to understand the system. We helped them with learning modules. Our business partners, our HR business partners, spent adequate time with them to make them understand as to why it's necessary, because today at the click of a button, I can get to know, and the business heads can get to know of the inefficiencies that could exist
yeah,
in the entire hiring. But when we were doing it on Excels and when we we were doing it on sheets, it took time. So if there were a question as to what is the bottleneck in the entire hiring, we took some time. But today, there is a report that tells us that, what is the average time taken to raise a requisition, what's the average time taken to approve a requisition, and similarly, what is the CV to shortlist ratio, what is the shortlist to turn up ratio, and from turn up, how many people get offers, and what's the dropout like. So everything is real time. So we gave adequate time through, as I said, that we had the
Yeah,
solution, but we did not totally implement it because we wanted our organization and the people to reach at a particular level as far as the maturity continuum is concerned, and we allowed them time to adapt to changes. So
understood.
we
Yeah,
did not rush into the thing. We took the modules, we paid for it, we did everything, but we took the right time. And everything happened as soon as we aligned business leaders and we aligned the teams, and they could see the value that's driving out of it. So, learning, encouraging that learning, and encouraging that agility, that is equally important to, um, apart from what I spoke in the beginning.
yeah. Great. Thank you for that, Divya. And again, I think there's a lot for our listeners to unpack there, because the way you encapsulate your journey, I think that's the approach with transformation that I think can really lead to success, not just from an implementation standpoint, but also adoption and the final result uh, standpoint. So thank you for encapsulating that journey and highlighting the relevance of employee experience that HR leaders really need to focus on. You mentioned skills and agility as key aspects, and that's something that the Sherpa report has also identified. If you look at business priorities, we often think cost competitiveness and growth projections are business priorities. But what we really found is the business leaders and CXOs are also looking at skills and agility as key aspects of their business outlook, of their profitability outlook in the coming 12 months. So, as we're talking about tech implementation and we're talking about really harmonizing technology for impact, how do you look at building skills within your workforce and building that agile mindset within your workforce while using HR tech and building that HR tech capability?
As I said, first is align your HR strategy or your digital strategy with the business goals. I think that's a place where a lot of companies fail, unless and until what you're doing on the tech side as far as HR is concerned does not align with what the business wants, be it hiring, be it talent management solutions, be it engagement solutions, be it demographic profiling, it could, or maybe chatbots and everything else. If it does not align with what the overall business needs are, then it is surely to fail. So,
Yeah,
for us, for example, I took the example of time to hire, and for us, focus is also on employee retention. So, these are the two places where we actively use tech, be it in measuring the employee engagement or measuring the multiple stage gates that we have in hiring, and then building it back. So that's the reason why there is a lot of value that is attached to these two processes, because that's what business goals also are through. Because the moment we take care of more effective hiring and more effective retention, it has got a direct impact on the top line as well as bottom line of the company. So it's important to connect business goals and this. And as I said, that it's also important to build on digital literacy and skills. And how can we do that? We can do that by getting a good crack team in place, a good HR team in place that has seen skill, that has seen implementations, that has also seen the roadblocks that are there in effective implementation, so that we could tackle them early on in the entire transformation journey. and use the learning management system if you have. So we also have a learning management system, and that's where we start. So it's an and solution, Dhruv, that has always worked for me as a leader, and that's what works for multiple organizations today. The moment you speak about HR tech, or you speak about chatbots, AI, this, that, people always feel that it's an either or. I always say that it's the power of and. Today, if hiring is automated, interviews are still being done in person.
Yeah.
The need of an HR interviewer or the business to get into the depth of the candidate and understand cultural fitment is still based on human skills. It cannot be automated. However, can I take out the bandwidth that is being consumed for scheduling? Can I take out the bandwidth that's being consumed for follow up, for MIS? Yes, that's something which I can move to tech. So it's important to understand that it's a fallacy to say that everything can be automated, and there's no human involvement.
Yeah.
Um, that's where we need to put in our brain that if there is time that is being saved by tech or maybe a chatbot. In my earlier stints, we've had chatbots that speak to employees, and there is a people to meet list which the chatbot generates. Because if you have a huge organization, you obviously cannot have that big a team in HR that can connect. So when employees speak to these chatbots, you get to know what are those pockets where you can expect more attrition or expect disengagement. And then the HR partner focuses only on that cohort because their deep
Okay.
dive
Yeah.
is required. So it's important. It's a mindset change, is what I would say. To think that you will implement tech and you'll implement a chatbot and you'll do away with X number of people is not the way. You will do away with X number of hours, and those X number of hours should be used to delve into people issues more, to make employee experience better. I think that's the
Understood.
mindset change that we need to look at.
Great. Again, I think it's great that you highlight the and aspect of using technology, and often the conversations with these technologies becomes an either or, and um, that sort of encapsulates a lot of the mindset shifts that you mentioned. One aspect that I would really like to get your views on is that what the report found, that when it comes to investing in a lot of technologies, in the next 1 year, a lot of people, a lot of HR leaders actually said that raising their own HR effectiveness through the use of AI and analytics, especially, will see a drop in investment. How do you contextualize this finding in the work that you're doing, and what do you think should are some of the barriers that HR leaders really need to sort of overcome so that analytics becomes a really powerful tool in helping them raise their effectiveness?
Agility and scalability. If HR leaders believe that agility and scalability is necessary, then we have no other option but to embrace HR tech, because tech brings repeatability, tech brings scalability as well. And that's something which HR leaders need to align to, especially in a company that's growing fast.
Yeah.
Functioning in silos is also something that needs to be addressed, Dhruv. As I said, that as an HR leader, I may feel that a particular solution is the best for the company, but if my people don't feel that, and if my leaders don't feel that, and they don't buy that, then there is very less hope for me to implement it well. So, aligning, building those cross functional teams, and that ownership uh, at all levels. I think
Yeah.
these are some challenges that as HR we would need to navigate through. Lastly, once you do all of that, clear ROI and metrics that measure. I personally, and as a leader, I believe what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So we have to set
Understood.
up clear metrics. We have to set up clear goalposts that we will reach or we promise to reach by implementing certain solutions. Monitoring those goalposts, monitoring those data points, and reporting them on a timely basis to multiple stakeholders does do the trick. And it
Agreed.
ensures that people circle back to what you have implemented, and you ultimately make the solution a success when you do all these three things.
Great, great. Uh, that actually brings me to a great point, even in the report. So what we've done in the report is we've also interviewed a lot of HR tech and a lot of HR service providers because we want to make it a holistic study. And one of the gaps that we found between what HR leaders expect versus what HR tech providers are providing as solutions, I think it's heartening to see very similar gaps also emerge between these two different cohorts when it comes to customization, when it comes to measuring ROI effectiveness, monitoring. These are some demands that even HR leaders have from their HR tech providers. So it's great to hear that that's a focus area that even within HR, people should really be looking at. So thank you for that, Divya. That actually brings me to my last question. And here I understand business disruptions, tech disruptions are so fast that it's difficult to predict the next quarter, let alone the next 12 to 18 months. But if you had to look at, the coming year, look at 2025, what aspects uh, within the entire implementation journey, within the entire execution journey of HR tech, do you think HR leaders really need to strengthen? Maybe the top two aspect that we might not have covered, but you see in the coming year becoming even more important. Uh, and what would your final recommendation to HR leaders be?
I think leveraging data analytics, that's something which has come up really well and which will continue to gain a stronghold, because any solution today cannot be very broad based. I mean, we are in an era where we are looking at custom solutions depending on what the employee needs. Hence, data analytics becomes crucial, Dhruv, because unless and until you know what are the various pockets of assent and dissent, discontent and content, and what each cohort needs, it's very difficult for any HR function to uh, implement or leave alone implement or to think of interventions that will suit
Yeah.
all cohorts. So data analytics, I feel, will become very, very important, more important than what it is now. And while there are multiple companies, HR leaders, where there is still resistance, and people still confuse between data churning and data analytics. There
Yeah.
is still, the difference is still very, very blurred. I think that blurring will go away, because what data brings out will become more important than data per se. So that's one key thing which I see is picking up pace and which will change. And second is in the learning front. On the learning front, through we are all in an era where people want to learn on the go.
Yeah.
People want to learn at a different pace. While there are still programs and interventions, especially on the leadership side, which have to be in person, which have to be in a proctored environment, which have to have a face to face time. There are still multiple programs which can be digitized, which can be put on the NMS, and which can be available at the click of a button. So learning is another space where I see multiple changes. adoption increasing in the next few years. If I have to take my
Understood.
example, I
Yeah.
mean my organization's example, we are we are in tier one, two, three, four, I mean, across the country, and it's a very, very distributed workforce, different languages, and different preferences to learn. We are adding on people vigorously. So, how do we ensure that people hit the ground running? And that's where digitization of the entire learning journey is important. So, today, our product, process modules, our compliance modules, everything is on the LMS, and interactive modules which we track. And the leadership interventions are still in person. So we call people, we talk to them, we do
Yeah.
coaching, we do these workshops. So we do both. So learning is another space, as I said, which is all set to change drastically, and that's one space where HR tech will play a very, very important role.
Great. Thank you for again, looking, and I know it's difficult to sort of, predict the next 12 to 18 months, but thank you for highlighting those key areas uh, that we that we see really emerging for HR leaders, to take note and build the capabilities to sort of address for business impact. That brings me to the end of this conversation, Divya. But any aspect, I know we've spoken a lot about HR technology focused implementation, looking at the different aspects of the change management journey. Any closing thought that you might have that I might not have covered through my questions? Anything that you would want to add before we end this conversation?
No, I think the only golden rule is don't jump into the bandwagon just because everyone else is. While there are a myriad of solutions available, um, you may not have that need. So it's important to start with what the organization needs at that point in time, and then pick up the tool which is important. Otherwise, an also ran philosophy will only backfire. I mean, that's the only closing comment through which I would want to make at the end of this very, very interesting conversation. And thank you so much for bringing me to this.
Great. Thank you, Divya. And again, thank you for helping our listeners really, get the best out of this conversation. So thank you for your participation. And to our listeners, stay tuned as we bring you more conversations as part of this interview series. And we'll love to see you again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.